I don't even think shareholders are like, I want you to just maximize my return completely. I think they want to know I'm getting a good return, but I'm investing in a company that's doing something that matters. Welcome to At the Table, the podcast that lives at the intersection of leadership, teamwork, organizational health, and culture. I'm your host, Pat Lencioni, joined by Cody, my co-host, who is obviously doing quite well today.
Thank you, Pat.
Yeah, so am I. What are we going to talk about today, Cody?
BaaM and WaaM is the title.
That's right. Might need some explanation. Maybe not. Maybe.
Let's just leave it there.
BaaM stands for Business as a Ministry, and we'll explain WaaM in a second. But last week, I had a chance to spend a day with a guy named Mike Sharrow. Mike heads up something called C12, which is an organization that brings together Christian CEOs to work together to try to support one another and learn about how to be better leaders and make their organizations more faith-based. And he introduced this concept to me called Business as a Ministry. And it's a takeoff on the idea of SaaS, software as a service. And I really like the idea, and I thought business as a ministry. Now, I'm a follower of Jesus, a Christian. You are too, Cody. But even if you're not, I think there's something really important to be said here, that our businesses can be seen as ministering to others, is serving others in love. Okay, I know that sounds soft, but every business can ask itself, like, how are we a ministry? How are we serving others in love? Now, some are easier to do than others. But I think the thing is the best places to work and the best places to be a customer and the best places to lead are ones that understand that the work they're doing is about something far more than just the transactional part of making money. And I know this sounds obvious, but the question is, how can we think of our business as a ministry?
Yeah, Pat, we've done a handful of episodes on what is work and what should work be. And we've used the four-letter word love at work. And so all of this sort of the vein of understanding work as something other than transactional, and I think that's kind of the spirit behind the entire podcast, right? Is, hey, we think that there's some, because we go to work for, 8 hours a day, a third of our waking lives, there's got to be something more to it than simply getting a paycheck so you can support your life outside of work. And so there are leaders and organizations that lean into that more. There are some that have leaned away from that. And I think that I love some of what you're talking about is just how do we figure out ways where we can see healing take place, or the word ministry might put some people off, but using the word love is a perfectly good one. Like, we love what we do. We can love the customers we serve. We can love the people within our organization. And that makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah, there's this guy named Tim Sanders, one of the founders, I think, of Yahoo. And he wrote a book called Love is the Killer App. And this was years and years. This was like 20 something years ago. And the idea is that is really what makes a difference. When I think about like startups that go public and the IPO and all these other things, I really don't think that even the people there, we tend to think they're coin operated, but they're not sitting there thinking, oh yeah, it's the IPO that's going to be, I think it's the day that a customer calls them and says, your product made such a difference in my work and in my life. I think that's everybody wants to work someplace where somebody says that to them. And sometimes it's a very technical area. Sometimes it's a very personal area. It kind of doesn't matter. The idea is, does this business serve somebody else and make them better as a result of that? So that's the idea of business as a ministry. And it's one of those things, when he said that to me, I thought, oh, I want to keep that in the forefront of my mind and my heart every day that I think about the table group. Whether we're doing Working Genius or consulting or a new book, we like to think about maybe it's changing somebody's life for the better at the other end of this. And that'll get you out of bed in the morning.
Yeah. Pat, I think it's worth, you told me about this Tim Sanders guy, and I looked it up, and I don't know if this is the subtitle to his app or it was printed on a magazine or subtitle to his book rather, but the subtitle under Love is the Killer App was Why Faith Beats Fear, Greed Isn't Good, and Nice Guys Really Finish First, really. And I love that like switch, because he's just taking everything that we've experienced this in many businesses, Pat, where fear is the primary motivator. Fear of whether our market share is going to get overtaken by a competitor, or fear that we're not growing fast enough. And in companies where we've seen fear be the primary driver, it's really obvious that there is a better way. I mean, people are not thriving in those environments. And so when we've encountered companies, and it doesn't matter what industry you're in, we've encountered companies where love and, connection and excess is that, like we just believe that there's enough is the primary driver. Those actually have outperformed the fear-ridden ones. And greed versus, what was the other word he used? Greed versus greed isn't good. So it's just a shift. And like you said, it doesn't have to be a group of Christian CEOs to do this. It's like, this is what is true in the core of business, is like that there is a different way, a better way.
Yeah, in our hearts, we want to know that we're loving and helping others. Sounds soft, but the best businesses in the world do that. It's tough to talk about, the Wall Street Journal may not write about that, and it may not be on every stock ticker show on TV. But the fact is, down beneath it, a bunch of employees want to know, I go to work and I make a difference for others. So I do love that. Now, here's the thing. A lot of people will say, and I think Karen asked me the question earlier today, like, what about public companies? Is it harder to do this in public companies? And the answer is, yeah, it can be. I don't even think shareholders, though, and I'm going to say something that people are going to think I'm so naive. I don't even think shareholders are like, I want you to just maximize my return completely. I think they want to know I'm getting a good return, but I'm investing in a company that's doing something that matters. Now, they're not indifferent to the fact like, oh, I'm glad you care about your customers, but I'm losing money on my investment. No, that's not how it works. But even when you run a public company, you can think that all I have to do is get as much money for my investors as I can. And I think even those investors and people that run public companies have to actually ask themselves, am I positioning this company to do well for others? And ironically, you will make more money doing that usually. But if you work at a public company and they're not into this, and you're like, I don't think my bosses think about business as a ministry, I don't think the CEO thinks that, then we go to WAM, and that is work as a ministry. We can still go and say, what am I going to do today? I know I do this prayer every morning. I listen to the readings of Mass. And at the end of it, it says, now, how are you going to go do something for somebody else today based on this? And I think that we can all go to work, no matter what we do, and say, whose life am I going to make different today as a result of this? Am I going to be talking to a customer or a vendor or one of my colleagues, or I'm going to a meeting? Who could I reach out to and do something that's going to make a difference in their lives, even if I'm not necessarily getting rewarded for it? That in itself is its own reward. So I think work as a ministry can be like a subset of business as a ministry if you work at a company that doesn't understand this.
Yeah, and Pat, you used a phrase during that long diatribe. No, I'm just kidding. You used a phrase. I forgot the actual phrase, but
that occurred to me, by the way. I was like, oh man.
No, the sentiment was around like that. This is not juxtapositioned or even opposed to results, right? Like this is that, we have a good friend, John Gordon, who literally coaches people at the highest level in athleticism and NBA, NFL, all of that. And he actually, before every game that he's with the team, he'll say the team on the field that loves each other more is going to win this game.
Right.
And we think it's so disconnected from the actual results of business or the game, but there is this, it does fuel the bottom line. And whether it's love for a customer, love for a colleague, or love for what you do, the mission of the organization, that matters. And just because there's no way for us to put it on a chart or measure the ROI doesn't mean it makes it any less real.
I agree. See, I wanted to be more brief there.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
No, it's true. But now we don't justify this because it's going to, it's true that loving on your customers, loving on one another, the results will be there. But you're doing it because it's worth doing to start with. The fact that it will lead to a better business is a really good thing. But really what it means is people are going to want to come to work and they're going to go home and be a better person because they spent their time trying to lean into and love other people. And that's why, gosh, I want everybody that listens to this to say, to what extent is my business a ministry? To what extent is my work a ministry? And man, can you imagine if everybody in a society or a nation did that, how different the culture would be?
Right. And it's interesting, the the things that you can't measure at work or in business, like love and joy and peace, are some of the most important things. And then we constantly go back to the metrics that we can measure. And so it would be real. I love that charge, Pat, that challenge to say, how could I increase my love quotient, output at work in one way or another? How would that change our team dynamics, our bottom line, the way we serve our customers? I think that if every single person thought about that, I think it would dramatically change a company.
Cody, this should probably be a different podcast, but I'm going to raise something. I just heard the other day that some AI company, they paid like $100 million to an employee to steal them from one of their competitors. Because they said, that's how big AI is going to be and all this stuff. And we were talking about this. And the truth is, a person that loves what they do and feels like their work is a ministry, or that they work at a company that sees their work as a ministry, you can't really pry them away with money unless they just can't survive and live on that. And so when we were talking about this, we were like, well, is this going to set off a bidding war where it's like, no, that's only true if you're really not happy there. And if somebody says, I'm going to poach you out of a company and put you in another organization that doesn't really care about one another and about I talked to a guy the other day, Cody, just say, yeah. So it doesn't sound like I'm the only one talking.
Well, keep going. I love that you just took a right turn there, but I want to hear the next part.
You never know where I'm going. I was having dinner with a guy the other night, and he said he got a job offer that would be millions of dollars. It would set him up for life. But he goes, but I realized the people at the other company, they never ask me about my personal life, and they're just not into it. They kind of value my skill set, but they don't really understand me as a person. He goes, I'm not doing it.
Mm-hmm.
And it was funny because I knew he wasn't. When he told me about it, I thought, well, you're not going to do this, are you? He goes, no.
Yeah.
And again, so what I'm trying to say is when you have a business as a ministry or work as a ministry, it is one of the greatest ways to avoid good people leaving, because that's so valuable. We all want that.
Yeah. And, Pat, it's so interesting that some people might think, like, even what I said earlier is pretty naive. Like, well, work isn't just about a paycheck. There's more to it than that. Where some people are like, no, my job is literally a transaction between me and my employer. And I think in some ways it's a chicken or egg thing, right? Like, if the employer values this, and we often tell leaders in meetings, like, we're going to have you go first. You have to be the first one to say, hey, we're actually going to make more of an effort to move in this direction. And I think about it, you could argue, well, yeah, that feels nice and all well when you're in a certain industry, but there are industries where this can't be true, right? And just in the last month, a flooring company and a roofing company that believe that some of what they're doing matters to people and their wholeness. And maybe they wouldn't use the word ministry about it, but they know that they have a responsibility to the people that work there to care and to love them. And it is a dramatically different business than a roofing company that doesn't do that. And so I love the challenge of saying, like, well, even if your employees, if you think, well, they'll think that's weird. It's like, well, just go first. Be the first person to lean into that and see what happens. Because I bet it does exactly what you described, which is people will remain more loyal and be more fulfilled at a company that values that than they would a bigger paycheck and a more transactional work environment.
Yeah, I had a chance to interact. We'll do a shout out to a company. Now, we used to do our unpaid ads. So here's one, but because it's related to this, is Jersey Mike's subs. I love Jersey Mike's. I go there and it looks like it's like the old days where they pull out the turkey and they slice it right there. And I love that. And they've been growing like crazy in the last few years. I guess other people like it too. But they really believe their job is to love on the people that run their restaurants. And half the time they're really young people who have never managed before. And they have a guy that's been there for like 40 years at Jersey Mike's. Coach Hughes is his name. They call him Coach. And his job is to go around and coach all the different people who run the restaurants around their life and around how to treat people and how to run their business. And it's absolutely a ministry for him. And we didn't even talk about this in that session when I met them, but it was just so clear that Jersey Mike's, I'd only eaten subs there, but they feel like their job is to love on their store people, so they will love on their employees, who will then love on their customers. And that's why this guy's been there for 41 years, because he goes, oh yeah, I've always get to pour into people and change their lives. And you look at companies and the ones that feel like they're just a business and the other ones feel like it's a family. It's usually because they're allowing people to lean into this.
Well, I love that, Pat, because if you were to poll the customer at sandwich shop, software company, doesn't matter, and ask them, can you feel that the company sees it as more than a transactional job? Or do they love each other? Like, I mean, you go to Jersey Mike's, they make great sandwiches, but partly because you can tell the experience of the customer, it bleeds out into their experience to say like, yeah, we care more. There's a guy like Coach in the organization that cares about our livelihood.
And I will patronize a place that cares more. So often that's the reason why I want to go back. I just thought of something, Cody, and that is that I know this is a surprise to you that I thought of something that wasn't planned. But
no way. I can't wait. This rarely happens.
Do you know that there's churches where the people that work there don't see their job as a ministry? Like they work in finance for a church, or I manage the front desk. And you go, what do you do? And they're like, well, I'm in finance. And it's like, no, you do something at a church. Your job is supposed to be a ministry. and I've worked with churches before where I say, hey, what do you think is more important, this church or that software company down there? And they'll say, I guess this church. I'm like, of course it is. Think about what you're doing. And I said, so you shouldn't tolerate people that don't do a good job in giving service and loving on people here, because most of those companies aren't going to want to do that either. And you should be the last one not to do that. So sometimes we have to remind even companies, organizations, churches that are in full-time ministry that all the people that work there are in ministry. And we should invite companies that aren't in ministry at all, it seems, to realize that all their people are ministers as well.
I love that. One other thought, Pat. I have an idea. No, we'll just keep going back and forth until we run out, and then we'll end the podcast. But I, as many people know that who listen to the podcast, my major in college was youth ministry, and then I got out of youth ministry as a major, and I got into a church, and immediately thought, well, I get the kids for an hour on Wednesday and an hour on Sunday. I should have become a school teacher, because I would have them for 8 hours a day. And if I really wanted to see transformation or love on them well, I would have more opportunity to do that. And I wonder if every manager and leader shouldn't think the same thing, which is, man, you are in a position where you have 8 hours a day to love on the people that you lead and serve. And that is more of an opportunity than their pastor, anybody else in their life, because that's where they spend the majority of their time.
And that's why management as a ministry actually makes sense, because it's a real word. If you put a little hypothesis in there, it's MAM. That's how the word MAM is written.
BaaM WaaM MAM. Yeah, well, you did it.
All right. So let's actually go back and talk to our teams about this. To what extent do we see our work as flowing from love, faith over fear, and are we really leaning into that? Because love really is the killer app. And that's a shout out to Tim Sanders from Yahoo. And it's a shout out to all those companies out there that want to make a difference in people's lives. All right.
No more ideas, Pat?
That's it.
Okay.
Oh, no, that's okay. All righty. Hey, thanks for joining us, everybody, at the table. We love speaking out to you. We love getting feedback from you, and we'll talk to you next time. God bless.